Evening, everybody. Good evening. Good evening. Just excited again for another episode on the Conversation 9-8. So thank you guys so much for your continued support. I'm excited again for another chance to come on, and we keeping this ball rolling. We keeping this thing rolling. I mean, if you really think about it, this episode 99. 99. We're getting ready for the big 100 on the next show. So I'm excited about that. But just again, excited about this week. So I hope everybody's doing well. I hope everything's going well with everybody. I myself just been resting up today, and not only just resting up, but just really relaxing. I guess the older you get, the more you look forward to just having some time to yourself. But this is the time that I have. I know back home there's a lot going on. People getting ready to go back to school. We have back down south, a lot of schools have started back for a lot of people. Having a lot of back to school things, a lot of things going on. And with that said, we just gonna keep this ball rolling again. So this week I'm truly excited about this topic, because this topic is one that talking about how do we take things that happen to us and take how the things that happen to us in our lives, how do we use that to move forward? And that's what I really want to talk about again. But before, make sure that you like, you comment, share this, let people know that you're in the building, and hey, look forward to having interactive conversations here. That's why it's called The Conversation, right? But I want to give a shout out to my class of 98, for holding the original class day out back home in Greensboro, Alabama. We're doing it big today. So love you, Mom. Said love the hat. Hey, representing the Alabama A&M University in Huntsville, Norman, Alabama. The mighty maroon and white, the mighty Bulldogs. So just wanted to show them some love, and not only show them some love, but just be represent who I am. That's my school I originally matriculated at, and the school that has a big place in my heart. But we're going to get on with the conversation, episode 99. And we're talking about learning how to use your regrets to find and protect your peace. Learning how to use your regrets to find and protect your peace. Now, that is something that is very powerful to do, right? Because we all live in life. We all have things that we regret. I don't care who you are. You can try to say that you don't. You can try to mask it. But if we're honest with ourselves and we look back over our lives, we'll realize, especially the longer that you live this 4-letter word called life, you'll realize that there's a lot of things that we may regret doing, or we will regret doing, or we will decisions that are made. We will regret a decision that wasn't made. We will regret a lot of things in our lives. But the key is, right, learning how to use those regrets to find peace. And the way to use those regrets, the foundational way of using those regrets to find peace, is first embracing the fact that you take responsibility that you made those choices, or you didn't make those choices. And by you taking those responsibilities, what that end up doing is that empowers you to take them and learn from them and use them to your advantage. And what I mean by that, right, using them to your advantage, that means that we can't weaponize our regrets if we always in denial that we even have regrets. We cannot do that. And so many of us, we spend so much time lying to ourselves and try to justify these things and never really deal with the fact that, hey, I made a mistake. Hey, that wasn't a good decision. Hey, that wasn't something that I should have done. Hey, I regret not doing this. Hey, I regret not doing that. And we always act like we good and never really deal with those things. We find ourselves perpetually in a place to where we're stuck, and we find ourselves at a place of lack because we never make the conscious decision to choose to face ourselves, to grow to the next level, to overcome that thing, so that we're not living with regret. We're using that regret in a sense to bring peace, to find peace and protect our peace in the future. That is one of the good recommendations that I would say about utilizing that and weaponizing it. And that's what I mean by weaponizing it. I'm not meaning it from a perspective of that that you make it a bad thing. No, I'm not meaning it from a perspective where you attack other people. No, that is not what I'm saying. That is not what I'm saying, right? Well, the thing that I am saying is this, right? You have to first acknowledge that there was a decision that you regretted making. You have to acknowledge that. Not only you have to acknowledge that, right? You have to take ownership and start peeling away the why behind why you made that decision. And once you start peeling away, peeling that onion back, or peeling back the layers of the why behind why you made that decision, right? That will help you find peace or find the source that may motivated you to make that decision in the first place. Now, why am I saying that? I'm saying that because too many times we just want to say we good and move on and expect life to move on, but life don't work that way. That's why we never find peace. That's why we find ourselves hoping the things to get better, but we never find peace. That's why we find ourselves next year, year after year after year at the same place with no change, because we refuse to face ourselves. And we have to face ourselves. We have to face ourselves. That's the only way. That's the only way that we can use our learn. That's the only way that we can learn to use our regrets in life to find peace. Because this is, oh my God, thank you, God, right? Most of the things that we regret, there's a lot of things that we deal with in life that, or choices that we make in life that leads, and the source of that regret is really from external situations and circumstances that lead us to make decisions. And in those decisions are the best decision in that moment. But as we look back on it, we made that decision from a place of hurt. And by making that decision from a place of hurt, as we begin to look back on it, we find that, dang, that wasn't a good decision. I have some regret with doing that, right? And a lot of times what we try to do is we try to suppress that regret and not take ownership of it. And that doesn't lead us to finding peace. So what we end up doing is we compound that thing on top of others, and we never live our best life or live the fullness in which we can live because we don't go through the process of healing. We don't go through the process of facing it. We don't go through the process of dealing with the why I made that decision. You know, some of us, we are in relationships, or we've made decisions. Some of us are in relationships, or we made decisions, life-altering decisions. We've made life-altering decisions simply because we were hurt or what somebody else did to us in that moment. And we made that decision. And what that in that moment now has the consequences of that moment may be with us for the rest of our lives. And as we try to move on to the future, right? We can't really find peace with it and be at ease and uneasy with the choice, because we never want to face the fact that that is a regret. Now, in those things, we can regret the decision, but just because I regret the decision doesn't mean I regret the consequence of the decision. And that can be with a child. Some of the decision may lead to a child. You may not like the fact of who you had the child with, but you don't regret the child. Y'all understand? That's what I'm talking about. But to go back and start to deal with those regrets and what led us to making the decision that caused us to regret it. And this is a good thing. This thing right here is a little bit, and it goes on different levels. And that's why I really want to talk about on that level. Really want to talk about this thing on that level. The level that I want to talk about is really getting to the root cause, getting to that root cause. And once we get to that root cause, what we'll find out that once I start dealing with the root of it, what I will realize is it will eliminate the sting of regret, because now I'm dealing with the why behind why I made that decision. And once I'm able to deal with the why behind why I made that decision, what that really will start doing is that will cause a lot of us to find peace and protect our peace in the future, because now I'm starting the healing process. I'm starting that healing process, and it goes beyond just the surface thing. I'm starting to deal with the reality of me. I'm starting to get down to that source of dealing with me. I'm starting to deal with me. And the reason why I'm starting to deal with me is because I find that as I start to make the decision to deal with me, I'm getting more control over my life. And by me getting more control over my life, I have peace. I find peace. And that's what I'm talking about. Just learning how to use your regret to find peace and to find and protect your peace. To find and protect your peace. Because we all gonna have regret. We are all going to have regret. I don't care who you are, you will have regret repeatedly in your life. You will have regret. We will not always make the right decisions. We will not always do right by people. People will not always do right by us. We would, even though our intentions may be good, the results of the consequences of our choices may not be what we wanted them to be. And that is okay. That is okay. But how can I use that regret to find peace and protect my peace? Is by going back to deal with what led to that decision. It's just learning from it. Going back, taking inventory of what it was, and have the intentional fortitude to face yourself and say, hey, I'm going to learn from this. I'm not going to make that same mistake. But the key is, this is the key. The key really is getting to a space to where I'm not just continuously not going to be in denial. I'm going to take ownership of it. So many times we look for other people to take ownerships for the role they played into to influencing the choices that we make. But the reality is, even though anybody may have influenced the choices that we make, we still made the decision to choose to do whatever we've done. So in that decision, I can't get upset and blame and want to put the blame on others by not dealing with me. And the source of that may be the regret of allowing other people to influence us. But if I really go back to the root cause of it, then now I will have to start dealing with, well, why were they able to influence me in that moment? And as I start to deal with that, what I start to do is I start to take back the power if I choose to deal with myself. And I can say, well, if I go back and deal with it, I say, well, they had the influence over me because in that time I didn't have good self-esteem, or I didn't have this, I didn't have that. And you start to take ownership and not blame them. And that's a good space to be at. That right there is a good space to be at. That right there is learning to use that regret to find that and protect that peace. Because a lot of the things is not just by finding it. Once you understand the why behind why a lot of the decisions that you made that led to you being in regret, once you find that out, that will empower you or equip you to understand how to protect that peace going forward. Because some of the stuff that we may deal with, some of the stuff that we may find ourselves on dealing with in life, those things that we may find ourselves dealing with in life, well, we'll find ourselves dealing with it because we don't want to really face it. We don't want to face it. We don't want to face it. We don't want to acknowledge it. We don't want to say, hey, this, that, and the third. We don't want to do that because it may be painful. It may be painful to deal with. And I understand that. I understand that. Some of us, we did the best we know how to. I understand it. I got it. But at the end of the day, if you don't deal with your regrets, and learn how to deal with and face your regrets in your life, what you will find is you will find a life full of chaos. You'll find a life that other people are controlling you. You'll find a life that other people are controlling your narrative. You'll find a life that other people are controlling you because you are enabling them or empowering them to have that control over you. And you will continue to make decisions that are heavily influenced by other people that will lead you to live a life perpetually living in regret, because you will find yourself having to deal with the consequences of your choices. And then what you'll be finding yourself is you'll be frustrated because you'll find yourself having to deal with the consequences of choices that you are allowing or empowering other people to influence you to make. And that leads to a life so full of regret. But you got to take ownership of it. And by you starting to deal with that, that empowers you to take ownership of it. That empowers you to do that. I'm sorry I got to talking. I'm getting some comments. Mom said, love the hat. Again, Valeda, how you doing, Miss Paige Bank? Good to see you. How you doing? She said, hey, man. We had another person say, hey, Robert, how you doing? Cindy Jones said, good evening. Got another person that just said, very nice cap. Go Bulldogs. AM, 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 you. Hey. So that the shout out to A&M and Patricia Wrong. Good evening. Good evening to you. So yeah, just really wanted to talk about that. Like really get into that, because there's a lot of things that when we and as I was sitting around thinking about what to talk about this week, right? And I was like, dang. And I started to think about some stuff over my life. And what the thing that really made me think about it is you can find so much you can find yourself in a place to where you would be faced with so much regret from choices and decisions that you made. And the reason why you find yourself so much with choices and decisions that you make is when you are not ready to take ownership of those choices. And get into a space to where you say, you know what? I'm taking ownership of those choices. You take ownership of those choices. And when you get to a space where you start to take ownership of those choices, what you'll start to see is you'll start to see less of an impact from the regret or how that impacts you mentally, because you made a decision to say, I'm going to take ownership of it. And guess what? The blow is less, it's not as hard because you owned your choice and not giving it others. And that's what it boils down to. You know, learning how to use your regret is you take ownership of it. You take ownership of that. You say, you know what? That's something that I did. And because that's like I said when I started off, there is so many things. There can be so many things in life that when we look back on it, we'll be like, dang, I regret, or I may look at it like, dang, I could have done that a little bit better, right? But the whole point about it is, you know, there's some things in life that we're going to have to live with or manage the regret because we may not get a second chance at doing, right? That's why we have to continually to take inventory of where we at, and not only take inventory, we should be present in the moment to address those things, to make adjustments in our lives, to right our wrongs in the present moment. Because what that does is that right there eliminates the blow of regret later on in life. And because it eliminates the blow of the impact or the hurt of the regret later on in life by being present in the moment, what that allows us to do is it enables us to make things right in that moment. So if you know there's some people right now living with the regret of not being in their kid's life because they weren't living in the moment to make the adjustments of what they were doing right there, because they were so focused on being successful and chasing the bag, or being super successful on their job, and they neglected their family, and they did all these things, right, just to to be accomplished on the job, but fail at the house. And now their kids grown. Now their kids grown. Now their kids gone. And now, you see what I'm saying? And with that being said, now they don't have a second chance, where they had plenty of opportunity while they was raising their kids to get it right, or to stay in the moment and make adjustment, but they prioritize something else over that at that moment. Ms. Paige Banks said, I've always wanted my children under my wing where I could tell them what to do. My regret is I was selfish. I stood back and saw the selfishness of me. I told them I was wrong, not them. Told them they were grown and I cannot control their lives. I just love how they turn to help, turn to me for help. Had I not saw my wrong, where would we be? And again, Ms. Paige Banks, thank you again so much for that. Because what that is a clear example of what I just got through talking about. You was present in the moment enough to acknowledge and take responsibility from the choices that you made. Your intentions weren't bad. Who would argue that it is bad to have the intention to want your kid? You dealt with the root of it, and the root of it was It was to fulfill or feed your selfishness. And with that, you acknowledged it and you put action to that in that moment. That's how you turn. Watch this. You use your regret to find and protect your peace. That right there is the epitome of what I am expressing. And how can we do that? How can we weaponize our regret? We can weaponize our regret by doing those things as far as we're putting action towards the things we know we need to change in order to deal with the regret that we have caused from some decisions that we may have caused ourselves. And that's how we weaponize it. We have to acknowledge that there was a wrong. That was a wrong that may lead to certain decisions. Now you acknowledge it. Now I'm not just going to sit on the acknowledgement. What I am going to do is I'm going to go back to the people. I'm going to reach out to them. I'm going to take ownership of what I did wrong, right? And I'm going to do everything within my power to heal that relationship, to heal that situation of circumstances, to heal it. I'm going to do whatever in my power. If that doesn't work, I've done my part. And now I can be at peace and I can move on. And I can acknowledge that and protect that in my future by not making the same mistake. And that right there is a perfect example. So thank you so much, Ms. Page. Thanks for sharing that. But like I said before, there are going to be a lot of things. And if we take inventory, if we really take inventory, there's a lot of regrets that I made as a father. As I thought back and look on it, right? Overall, you're like, man, I did everything I could to make my kids' life better. I did everything I could to provide for them. But there are some regrets. There are some things that I have to go back and make amends for now. There are some things that I have already started to do as I sit back and take inventory. I didn't just sit down and acknowledge my regrets and then just be like, oh, well, that just happened, and then go back. Because watch this. When you just acknowledge your regret, and especially when you've done something to cause pain, hurt, harm, or pain, especially to a child or your children or somebody close to you in a relationship, and you just acknowledge that there was, you regret that I should have done this or I should have done that, and and you just stay there. That is so much more hurtful for the other person, because now you don't realize the impact that it had on your kids or your spouse or your family members. When you realize that I regret making this decision or not doing this, it is so imperative that we go back to make it right. That's why in the Bible said, if you offend your brother, you go to them. You go to them, right? You go and make it right. Don't just sit there in it, because there's a lot of people that are 40, 50 years old still waiting on their mama to come back and acknowledge what they did wrong to them. And it's imperative that we do that. It is so imperative that we do that. There's some people right now that there's some children out there that are screaming for help through their behavior, because they are waiting on their parents, or they're waiting on somebody to acknowledge that, hey, I leaned on you too much for mental support, or I put too many adult responsibilities on you to carry for me, or I wasn't there for you, or I did, and they're waiting on you to, hey, I was wrong for that. I was wrong for that. And then what happens is they're carrying that on them. That's why it's so important that if we realize that we're regretting making decisions or not doing certain things, that is why it's so imperative to go to people to make it right, to go back to make it right, to go back to our kids to make it right, to go back to our families to make it right, to go apologize, to do those things to make amends. It's no need to just keep back and thinking back, well, that was a long time ago. No, they've been living with that for years. I mean, for years. And there's people that are living with things for year after year after year, hurt after hurt after hurt. And they just learn to identify by it now, because they may feel that nothing will ever come from it. And the people that cause the pain to them, the people that may cause the pain to them, they may not have intentionally hurt them, but it came from the source. From you represent the source of their hurt. So it is okay to go back to them, right, and deal with it. But what happens is this, because a lot of people are afraid to go back to make amends because they still hadn't healed themselves. And they are afraid to go back and make amends for the things that they may have done wrong because they are hurting themselves. They are still wounded themselves, and they are still looking for somebody else to come to them to take ownership for something that happened to them. But it's so imperative that you take ownership or weaponize that regret to say, you know what, I'm accepting this and I'm gonna go make it right. I'm accepting this and I'm gonna go do what I need to do to make that right. For real. My mom said we may experience regret, but it doesn't mean we should stay depressed for the regret. We must address it to heal. And then that's we all will experience regret, but and I'm glad you posted it. I'm glad you posted it. We all will experience regret. We all will experience regret. We all will experience regret multiple times over and over in our lives. But the key is that even though we know that we will experience regret, it is about choosing to stay in that regret by not choosing to deal with it and address it. And when we choose to just acknowledge it and not address it and not deal with it, then what we do is we're choosing to stay in a place of stagnation in our lives. And by staying in that place of stagnation in our lives, we aren't choosing to grow. We aren't choosing to heal. We aren't choosing to move forward. And when we choose to deal with it, now what we're doing is we are making room to heal and making a place where peace can dwell. And that is a powerful place. That is a place where we should all thrive to get to. And in that space, I mean, seriously, in that space, we'll find a better quality of life, a better quality of life. Hey, what's going on, Coach Jenkins? He said, my mama, her brother, and sister waited their whole lives for Granny to apologize for the mental abuse she put them through. Granny died in 1999. My uncle, aunt, and mama passed away, still carrying the pain, despite all three having forgiven Granny. But Granny never said she was sorry, and that hurt them deeply. Wow, Coach, I'm going to read that one again. Coach Jenkins said, my mama, her brother, and sister waited their whole lives for Granny to apologize for mental abuse she put them through. Granny died in 1999. My uncle, aunt, and mama passed away, still carrying the pain, despite all three forgiving Granny. But Granny never said she was sorry and that she hurt them deeply. Thank you for sharing that, and thanks for your transparency on that. And that is a powerful, powerful thing. And that is what I'm talking about. Really is learning how to use that regret to find and protect your peace is actioning that. Because just like what Coach just said, somebody can do something to you and cause you hurt, and you can forgive them, but that still doesn't mean that pain goes away. Or they can forgive you, but that still doesn't mean that pain goes away for them, right? I'm grateful that the issues that I've had with my father, that we were able to reconcile. And I can say if we wasn't able to reconcile from those issues, it's not saying that my dad was abusive or anything like that, but there were some things, some issues that I had with him, especially early in my life, because I felt that even though he was present in my life, that I wasn't a priority in my life the way that I should have been, but in his life the way that I should have been, which led to me having some insecurities myself, right? But God allowed me to address and acknowledge that fact that I had that issue. But when it was brought back to my father, what he did was, he didn't just say, I regret doing that. He dealt with it, he addressed it, and he changed his ways. And God allowed him to have a second chance. And in him having that second chance, and me seeing him maximizing that moment of the second chance through my niece and through my son, that allowed me to heal just from seeing that. And I'm grateful for having it. But Coach talked about how his mom and her siblings was waiting just for their mom to just say, "I'm sorry." And that's the point that I'm talking about here. Is we have the power to heal a lot of situations if we just take ownership of the choices we made and the regrets we have in our lives. And only thing we have to do is just go to people and say, you know what, I'm wrong. I apologize for that. I apologize for doing that. I apologize for hurting you. I apologize for doing this, that, and the third. Hey, I didn't mean to do that. Hey, I did it in that moment. And the more that I'm figuring out, I will let you know. Hey, I was doing that because at that moment I didn't feel like I wanted you guys close to me because I didn't feel secure. I was insecure, and my kids made me feel secure. I wanted this, that, and the third, or I needed this, and I did that at that moment. It wasn't my intent to hurt you, but I know I hurt you. I apologize for that. I take ownership of it. And I will tell you, when you do that, you will start to see people's lives change, and you'll start to see people heal from deep things inside, because guess what? You're taking responsibility for the choices you made. You're taking that responsibility. And that's a great thing and a great place to be. And the reason why I'm saying that is because that protect your peace moving forward. That gives you a space so much. They give you a space to where you're not carrying the dead weight from your past, and you can deal with and carry the weight from your future. Listen, I will tell you one thing that I know about me and what I learned about me, right? And even in a work environment, right? It is very frustrating to have to try to move forward with something while having to clean up the stuff that already should have been done. And you're trying to move forward, but you're constantly in reactive mode because you're spinning your wheels, dealing with stuff that should have already been dealt with, or dealing with stuff that coming from things before or from your past and not your present. And what happens is we find ourselves frustrated with trying to balance all of that and balance the requirements, the new requirements in our present, while having to clean up the old stuff from our past. And what it does is keep piling on and piling on and piling on, and we get overwhelmed because it's so much. It's so much. And we had to get to a space and say, golly, man, I'm going to clean my slate. And a lot of that cleaning the slate is forgiving. Saying, you know what, I'm no longer going to choose to carry this thing from my past. I'm going to let go of those things from my past to focus me, to free me up to deal with the day-to-day things I have to deal with in my present. And that's what I'm talking about, learning how to use that regret, right? To find and protect your peace. Is learning how to use that regret is first addressing it, dealing with it, so that you can address it and move on. You can put it in its place, clean it up, and you can start moving on. Because too many of us are dealing with carrying so much extra weight in our lives. We're doing that right now, and we're trying to figure out how in the world can we move on, but we are too afraid to address the things or the choices or the consequences of our choices from our past. And once we get to that space that we're doing that, we'll find that life is a whole lot easier, because we find life to be a lot more peaceful. And we'll find that we have the tools, or we're equipped with the tools to not only find that peace, but to protect that peace moving forward. Again, man, thank you guys so much for rocking with your boy. I'm excited because next week, looking at next week on the 13th, we will have episode 100. That means 100 episodes going strong with the Conversation 9-8. I'm so thankful for the continued support. Continue to look into just continue to be obedient and grow and do these things. Coach got another comment. He said, my mama, her brother, Ms. Paige Banks said, I was always a strict parent, one of the best for my children. One of my sons thought he could and should try me. He did it on several occasions. I put that switch on him every time. To this day, he feels as though he was mistreated. Said he was treated differently. We've talked, and I've even said, okay, son, for all of the times you feel I was wrong when in whooping you, I'm sorry. You're grown now. Let's start from here. He said, okay, but still tell everyone he's the black sheep of the family. I asked him who made him the black sheep. I'm good, but he's still carrying a grudge. And I'll tell you, Ms. Paige Bank, on that one, that's something that he's going to have to take ownership of. Before that part, you did your part. I would tell you, a lot of times, what I've observed throughout the years, especially when we're talking black sheeps of the family, in a lot of cases, there are black sheeps. There are black sheeps, but there's a lot of cases some people begin to identify themselves by the black sheep, and they will perpetuate an environment to where they want to create this environment to everybody else as if they're around them, as if they are the black sheep, when reality is they wasn't. And they begin to identify by being the black sheep. So now the black sheep is part of their identity that they don't want to let go. So it doesn't matter about the healing aspect of it. It doesn't matter about if somebody else take ownership of it. They have made a conscious decision to choose to be the black sheep, right? But that doesn't mean that they are the black sheep. So the only thing you will required to do is go to somebody. I'm not required to make it right. I remember my mama always used to tell me, I used to get frustrated with Portia, right? And I tell Portia, hey, Portia, don't do that because this, that, and the third. And Portia, Portia always was Portia. My sister Portia, she always was Portia, right? And my mama told me something one day and it clicked. She said, Robert, you're only responsible for telling. You're not responsible for making somebody do something. And in the same point, you're only responsible for taking accountability for your actions. You're not responsible for somebody else taking theirs. And no matter how hard you try, they still got to take ownership of it. And, at the end of the day, if some people can't, and I say this, and I'm looking at it from a perspective of a father, and this is put my hat on as a father. If my kids, if I did something that I felt that was for their best interest, sincerely felt was for their best interest, and I was preparing them to do something that they may not have even faced right now, and they have an issue with me on that, I will apologize for how it made them feel. But I'm not going to apologize for me fulfilling the role or the responsibility that I needed to do as a father. And I'm not saying that as if I'm not taking ownership for my actions, but I am going to stand my ground in the point of that is what I know that I needed to do, because I need to prepare you for something that you're not ready, or I need to prepare you for a life that you will face that you never had to face yet. And I say that from a space of I was that kid that didn't want to receive anything that my dad was trying to tell me as a young man, because I thought I knew it all already. And it wasn't until I was 21 years old and had recently been married and having my own place and having the responsibility of being a man, to where it all hit me that, dang, everything my daddy was doing was preparing me for this moment. And guess what? I broke down into tears. And I called my dad, crying like a baby, like, thank you. Thank you for everything. Thank you for making me do things that you didn't make my sisters do. Thank you for holding me accountable for stuff that I felt like I should have had a pass on. Thank you for making me go with you and be around you and do all these things with you and see all these things that at the time I didn't want to go to all them church services. I didn't want to go to those meetings that my dad had me going to. I didn't want to go around and meet all them people. I did not want to do that. But I'm so grateful now as a 42-year-old male that my daddy made me do that when I was a little boy. I'm thankful for that. I am grateful for that. I couldn't see it back then because I didn't have the perspective. That's why I say it's easy to have an opinion about something you never had the responsibility for. And my daddy was making sure that I was prepared to fulfill the role that he knew I had to fulfill. I didn't have no perspective on that. I didn't have on that. Only thing that I had was I had a perspective on me doing whatever I wanted to do. And that was my mind was set to. I wasn't thinking about when I was 15, I wasn't thinking about what the responsibility was going to be as a man, caring for a family and providing for a family. So I didn't want to hear nothing he had to say. But boy, was I wrong. And I'm grateful that he pushed me and that he held me accountable for the thing. So Miss Paige Banks, I would just tell you, hold on to that, do your part, and put it in God's hand. Put it in God's hand. The worst thing we can do as a parent is try to take on the responsibilities of our children when it's their responsibility to deal with themselves. I'll say that again. The worst thing we can do as parents is try to take on the responsibility of our children for the choices that they made and what they have to be responsible for themselves. It is, you did your job bringing them in and raising them up. You did your part. It is not your job to take that responsibility. They got to own it. They got to own it. And don't put yourself in that position to where you feel like that's on you. It's not on you. It's on them. If you did something to cause them hurt and pain, take ownership of it. But don't sit there and try to take on the responsibility for them healing, because that's not your problem. That's not your responsibility. I'll say that. And I felt led to say that. And I thank you guys so much for rocking with your boy, for tuning in to the Conversation 9-8. Looking forward to episode 100 next week on August the 13th. And I'm excited, and I'm going to continue to be excited. Again, man, go like my page, The Conversation 9-8 on Facebook. Also, too, on Instagram, The Conversation 9-8, as well as on YouTube. Go like my channel. Make sure you like hit the notification button. The Conversation 9-8 YouTube channel, right? And I'm on TikTok as well at the Conversation __98. Thank you guys so much. Make sure you share this, send it to somebody, and shout out to Alabama A&M University. All right, you guys, HBCUs in the house. You guys have a great and wonderful day. God bless.